Next thing we're going to work on is the win or lose condition. Right now, when the ball goes out of the screen, we're kind of screwed. We got to restart the game. Definitely not a good game design. All right, so this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So what we're going to do is create some more variables here. So we definitely need to incorporate the lives, and we might as well do the level and the ball status as well while we're at it. All right, so let's go ahead and do lives first, I guess. Okay, and I'm going to have 2 extra lives to begin with, so they have 3 lives total. You can change that to whatever you want. And now we have a level as an integer as well, because level is always going to be whole number, just like lives and score. And we'll start them at 1. And I'm going to call it status for the status of the ball. And I'm going to make this a string because we're going to have different types. So for right now, I'm just going to call it single. And eventually, when we start breaking blocks, we're going to need to hold the value of the blocks left in the screen so that we can actually call a win when all the blocks are deleted. So that's what this variable is going to do. Dim block break count. Notice my camel case there as integer, there we go, equals, and I have 16 blocks in my scene. If you have more or less, go ahead and count them up and put that number right here. All right, and lastly, we're going to have a variable for if the game is paused or not. We're going to incorporate that too in a little bit, maybe not today, but soon. And we need another variable that says can play. So another Boolean, which basically means if they can play the game or not. All right, so that should be all of our variables. It is a common occurrence when we restart the game or reset any of our objects. We want to basically reset the level as well. So we have to reset a lot of these variables by hand. And it doesn't look like we have created a load form event yet. So let's go ahead and do that. The default event for the form is to load. So click anywhere in the background of your form right here. Double click and it'll actually add that event for you. So if I double click here, in code it goes ahead and puts this event in for me. So this is when the form is loaded, meaning when the game is first started. Normally this event is going to go at the top of the code, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it out with Control X, and I'm going to paste it up here right below where I've created all my variables. All right, this kind of helps organize the code. Everything that's initially going to happen should be at the start of the script or the code. All right, so I'm just going to go through and reset all of the values and the labels that display them. So again, when the game is restarted, we're going to reset score to 0. We need to set the label. So we need to find our event where the ball has reached the bottom of the screen right here. So find your little if statement inside the timer tick subroutine, and we need to find that line of code. When you find that, I'm going to show you guys how to create your own subroutine. So right down here, right after this line, we're going to put in, I'm going to call it reset objects. Again, you can basically call this subroutine right here anything you want, but make sure it has a open and closed parenthesis here. Basically what that means is it's going to call a subroutine, and we're going to run that. So since we've created this subroutine, we now need to create it down here. So after your last end sub, we'll put it at the very bottom right before the end class. I'm going to go ahead and create a private sub, and we're going to call it the same name. So I called it reset objects. Capitalization does matter, so make sure you keep that. As soon as I hit enter, it puts in the end sub for me, and I now have my new subroutine. Okay, we don't need anything in the parentheses because we are not calling any type of object. So now we need a check. So this is going to be called anytime that the ball position reaches the bottom of the screen. So what we're going to check is if the player has lives left. Okay, that's going to be the determining factor whether the game ends or the player can keep going because they have more lives. So that's our check here. So if lives is greater than 1, then, so the first thing we need to do is keep the ball from moving. So we're going to set ball stuck equal to true. That's at least going to keep the ball from moving. It's still going to be below the screen though, so we got to bring it back up. So we're going to reset the ball box location. Okay, and this one is kind of lengthy. We're going to create a new point, and we're going to give it a new location. So it doesn't matter where the player paddle is, or the player box, but we need to set it in the middle of the paddle. So for example, right here. Okay, maybe their paddle is over here somewhere, and the ball needs to be on top of that. So that's what makes this kind of tricky. So we're going to go to the player box location.x, and remember that's the left side of the player paddle, this top left. So what we're going to do now is actually add a little bit more, and we need to add half of the player paddle width. Okay, so we're going to call playerbox.width divided by 2. So this is half of the width, and we're adding that to the left side of the player box paddle right here. So that's going to at least put it towards the middle. It's going to be a little off because, again, it's going to put the top left of the ball at that spot. So if you want it directly in the center, and you're kind of OCD like I am, then you're going to have to put in one more little subtraction. We need to move it back to the left just a little bit, and it needs to be half of the width of the ball. So we can type in that. That whole thing right here is the X position of the ball. What we're going to type in next is the Y position. So we need to have the same player box Y location, but then subtract the entire height of the ball box. As soon as I click off there, the errors go away. So if we just kept it at player box Y, they both have the same Y value. But as soon as you put on as soon as you put on minus the ball box height, it goes up to right here. Gonna test it out here. Uh-oh, that doesn't look quite like the center, does it? Aha! I said divide, but I put in a minus sign. I think I was thinking of this. So we need to come back in here. Bam. Division. Test that out. Alright, puts it back in the middle of the paddle. Alright, this video is getting kind of lengthy. I'll leave it off there. Notice our lives didn't change. We're gonna have to fix that in the next video.